Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. This review has been requested by a number of viewers, and this is a new pen from Karras Pen Company, Karras Customs, Bill Karras and Company in Mesa, Arizona. They were at the show. They don't make a lot of shows. I've always looked for them and wanted to spend some time with them at the show, and I was able to do that at the DC show. It was Bill, his daughter, and Amanda, who is involved in the business in some ways. So this is the pen, the Vertex. I bought the Starliner XL first and then asked about what else they had, and they said, oh, you should look at the Vertex. And I go, whoa. So it comes with this rickshaw case. It also may come with other things. It probably is not going to be on the website until later on, maybe a month or two or more. Who knows? They said fall. This is considered a production pen. Here's my Carolina pen stop. So the first thing you'll notice is a simplistic design, but with an interesting visual element here, which is an ink window. It has that concave design at the top of the cap, just a classic rounded end at the bottom. This is your machined acrylic and polished, and it has that feel which we're all familiar with. So with me, Karras Customs, the caps always unscrew, but with this one and the Starliner XL, they pop off. And it pops off with a nice distinct sound. It has a number 6 Bach nib in it. This one happens to be a fine, which is what I ordered it with, or when I bought it. I probably should have gone titanium, yeah, but should have. I have a number of titanium number 6 nibs, which I will put in here and write with later on, in addition to writing with this original one. There's that O-ring that Paul talked about in his video, which I've referenced above in the description, or below in the description. And that works well. So I inked up this pen at the show with an Organic Studio green ink, which I really liked, and I'll write with that later on. And this O-ring does exactly what Paul talked about. It stops ink from building up here between this Bach nib assembly and the section. So kudos to Karras Pen to come up with that idea. That's a beautiful idea. This is only eyedropper or cartridge, I think. Yep. Yeah, it unscrews as you would expect. And you can feel a little resistance, like with Pen BBS. But after a few turns, it comes off. You know, you have fine threads there in this section, which is what you would expect with an eyedropper pen. And you might think, well, I need to silicone grease these, which you can do. But when I filled it at the pen show, I didn't, because inside of here is an O-ring. And later on, we'll do my LED X-ray, and we'll see how this is made. This is the green color. It's a dark green color. According to Paul's video, this is the same resin that's in the Decograph, which had a green and a black, I think, when it was originally produced and sold. So I'm calling this a nib holder. So any number 6 Bach nib can go in here very easily. It just unscrews. And that O-ring really does a great job. And this is a great nib holder. It fits extremely well in the hand. It posts deeply and securely. The pen is light. We'll give you those weights. We'll give you these dimensions. I'll do a comparison with other pens, but overall, I like this pen. And I think it's a great design. I think it's a wonderful addition to American-made pens. I think all the little details are just right. And Paul talked about the fact that it will be coming in different materials, ebonite, maybe a metal version. But, you know, once they have this design down and the concepts down, then just finding materials that make sense to use is probably an easier part than the original part. So I just wanted to hear that click again. So overall, you know, it's a shame that if you're watching this, you're going to have to wait, or maybe go to the San Francisco Pen Show or whatever next pen show that Keras Pens will be at in order to get one. But it'll be worth the wait. I strongly endorse this pen, recommend this pen, and this is my opinions based on buying this pen and writing with it for about a past couple days. So I have no complaints. It's all good. Here is the Vertex disassembled, and it's very easy now to see that O-ring that Paul talked about. And this is the pen that I emptied out of the Organic Studios ink that I had in it. And I have to say that that O-ring does keep ink from building up here between the nib assembly and the section. So that's an excellent idea, and I've always had a challenge with that, making it harder to clean out the pen. I think you can see that pale line. Kind of hard to get the light right. That really is where the O-ring is. And also, I think Paul said there's an O-ring within the barrel, so we need to get out my trusty LED X-ray. So first we'll look at the barrel, and that is definitely a nice green. As we transition down the barrel, there's that O-ring, which is right before the machining gives you a thicker material there at the top of the cap. So my guess is that O-ring fits right there at the section. So the section is up against that stop, and the O-ring seals it up. So beautiful design, you know, really clean. So now we're gonna take a look at the barrel, and here's the other O-ring. I'm just loving this. You know, the engineer in me just really loves watching how these things are made. And that's a nice solid plug at the end there. So we've now taken a look at how the pen is in pieces and all the interesting design, the functional design parts that Bill and Paul and company have put into this pen. When I asked Bill about how long it took him to produce this pen, he said 3 months, which I think is fast. You know, from idea to actual production pieces, which the pieces here at the DC show were positioned as production pieces, not prototypes or pre-production. So, and based on my use of the pen, I totally agree that these are in good shape, very well done, and a great writing instrument. So one thing I think that's good that viewers have requested is a comparison. So you can put this Vertex pen in perspective as to size to other pens that you may own or know about. I needed to put the Starliner XL in here. Obviously in a few days, hopefully we'll have a full review of that one. But the Vertex has really captured people's attention, so I wanted to keep it here. And all these pens are lined up at the bottom of the barrel, so you're getting the relative size as far as the length goes. Here's an ink which is one of my first, well, is my first pen from Keras Customs, and it's great. Number 6 nib. And we're going to do an experiment of putting that number 6 nib into the Vertex, because that's a titanium. Here's a Pen BBS 308/266, your classic Lamy All-Star, which is about the same size as a Lamy Safari, and your Pilot 78G. So now we're going to uncap, post, and look at them again. So to me, posted, these take on a whole different dimension. From my perspective, the Vertex is a perfect size. The Starliner XL, I find okay. I've read a few reviews where some people think it's a little small. They think the proportions to cap and barrel, but they're good for me. The ink's really not designed to post, but as you can see, it's a long pen, probably very top heavy, but I would never post it. The Pen BBS 308, I'm going to use that as my standard because I love the size of the grip. I think the overall size of the pen is just about perfect. As you can see, it's a little bit longer than the Vertex, but that extra length is what hangs over that palm of your hand, a little crook between your thumb and your index finger. Lamy Safari, which a lot of people use as a reference point, which is a pretty long pen, posted, light cap, so it really doesn't affect the balance at all. And the 78G, which in this group is pretty diminutive. One of the reasons that I've never really done a full review on it is I don't find the pen extremely interesting. I have used the nibs in some of my Chinese pens because they take a standard Pilot nib that has that kind of wing design at the end. I'm also a firm believer in the design of a section has a lot to do with how you as the user of the pen interact with it. I mean, that is where you interact with the pen. So part of understanding a pen, if you go to a pen show or you go to a pen shop, those that are fortunate enough to do that, you can hold the pen in your hand, you can write with it, you can get a feel for whether that pen fits your writing techniques. Every pen is a little different, and some of the pens that look the same are a little different. So, but this is a pretty wide variety of sections here. This one is pretty clean design, just a little flare out the bottom. This is a larger flare at the bottom, but both of these, there's really no transition, so you can hold them anywhere. This is a little thicker. This is a little bit more standard section. You have threads, you have a step up, so you're probably going to be limited to this section. And I love the brass section in this aluminum pen that weights it towards the front. Kind of like the lawyer pen from Sailor, which not something I want to spend the coin for, but I like the concept and design. And here's that 308, which I think is a pretty much universal section that I think would work for almost anybody, except for people that like really skinny sections, like pencils or Bic pens. I like doing my videos in one contiguous shoot. You may be pausing now and then, but basically just going from end to end. I think that adds some spontaneity, it adds some creativity, at least from the way I enjoy doing videos. But this pen is inked up, and it's inked up with this ink that I got at the DC Pen Show. And the main reason why I got this ink was I talked to Sean, the gentleman at the Organic Studios table, and this is a vintage ink, so it's designed to be friendly to vintage pens, friendly to sacks. And I don't have an ink like that. So when I got this pen, I needed to ink it up, so I used that ink. It's a green pen, and we've seen that from the LED X-ray. And I'm using my Carolina pen stop to keep it from rolling, and it is a nice green color to go with the pen. So I wanted to do this writing sample with this ink because that's the first experience that I had with it, and I've written quite a bit with it. I just love the way that cap pops off, and when Paul did his video he talked about how they engineered it, and we saw how this cap is machined and designed, and with that O-ring in it. Hopefully I've emptied this out with ink, and we filmed the inside here, which is an O-ring here. And the intention is to minimize the need for silicone grease. And there's also an O-ring in the barrel here to seal the section, so you can just open it up and fill it with ink. I just filled it with ink and started writing, and I have not had any issues. So let's see how this fine Bach nib works with this ink. And I'm pretty certain I've established a theme. This is a nib holder. It's a very well-designed nib holder. It works very well, and you can use any number 6 Bach nib in this pen. Hopefully you can't hear that nib on paper. And this is paper that amplifies the Nib sound. So this is very smooth. No effort to write. But those of you that are familiar with Bach nibs probably experience this on a daily basis. I think this is a very nice green ink. It's a little on the light side, but so is my Robert Oster Sublime and Jade. Jade's a little darker, but I think it works well in this pen. I think it would work good. It shades nicely. This is more of a review of a fine Bach nib with this particular ink, not necessarily a review of the Vertex pen. But this section is as comfortable as any pen I've ever written with. And I don't say that lightly. The weight, the balance, this is posted, and to me, posting really doesn't change things. It's a perfect size posted. You can see how it fits in my hand there as the camera refocuses. So I wanted to do this with this ink in here because I'm going to dump the ink back in the bottle, really take a look at this pen without ink in it, and then ink it with a different green ink, which I also got at the DC Pen Show. So you may ask, why am I calling this pen the world's best nib holder? Well, you may recognize this pen. It's a Namasu Nova in titanium, and it came with a Bach titanium nib, and now it has in it the Bach fine steel nib that I took out of the Vertex. So here's that nib. I like the way this nib writes, but how does it fit into the Vertex? And the answer is easy as pie. Just screw it right in, fits well. So now we have a different nib, and we're going to see how this one writes with a different green ink in it. Now that we made the nib swap, I put in a new ink. I enjoyed my other Pen BBS inks that have a little bit of glitter in them. I think it's just the right amount from what I like. Looks like this was bottled on December 27th of 2017. I like that, like KWZ does. The label does kind of indicate a little bit of what the color of the ink is. That's nice. There's no English on it, so it's good. And you can see that glitter that is settled to the bottom. So a little shaky shake, and you can get that back into suspension. And when you fill the pen from this bottle, which is an easy bottle to fill from, I like this design, you just shake it up and then fill your pen. And this is the pen that now has it in with the fine titanium nib that I took out of the Namasu Nova. So this pen has been written with by a number of people, and the response has been extremely positive, and I think that's great because I think it's a great pen, or nib holder as I've been referring to it as. So I've talked about this titanium nib in the past when I did my review on the Namasu, and I also have a similar nib in my Karas Customs ink. I just think that Bach did a great job with this. Yes, you can spring it, but my feeling is anybody can break anything. It's takes some care and attention to understand how to use the tool that you have the best way and not break it. So this has more feedback than the steel nib. You can feel it on the paper. I've not done anything to smooth this or to address that because I think it's part of the nature of the titanium nib. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little view. So you can push it a little bit. It doesn't take much pressure to push it, and it does spring back fairly quickly and fairly nicely. If you push it a little bit more, maybe it won't spring back, but that's not something I want to do. So now we're going to come up to that all-important rating. You probably can guess what I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a 9.6. From my viewpoint, a pen is to write with, and this pen has been designed for writing. It also has some great function over form. Got to get that right. So you have your different clear sections here, which might equate to the ink that you might put in the pen. So that's an interesting concept, and the fact that when it's capped you can see that ink window and see the color of the section. So this would be a great pen to have for multiple inks, and using Bock nibs you can have multiple Bock nibs in there. So I'm sorry I can't speak any more highly of this. And as I said, a lot of people wrote with this. I took it to the local pen meetup, and it got very high marks. The comments that I've had on my DC video, a lot of people seem to be slightly confused over the fact that they can't find this pen on the Keras website, but I thought it was clear, but I'll be clear again, and I'll put it in the intro. This pen is currently not in full production for sale. Keras Pens is bringing some to some pen shows. I think San Francisco's next. I know that may not be what people like, but that's the nature of the beast. You know, it is what it is. Eventually this pen will be in quantities enough to be able to support putting it up on the website, and I expect there'll be quite a big run on them. And also we mentioned that there'll be multiple materials that'll be used for different versions of this. So this design, I think, has a lot of legs to it. Maybe you might see a clip on it at one point in time. Again, just a guess on my part, but we'll see what happens. So thank you for watching. And may you have many great, excellent, phenomenal, stimulating pen experiences. Enjoy the wonderful world that we're thankful to be in. So we reach the end. Until next time, bye. And this ink has certainly grown on me, and I do enjoy it. And that glitter is just enough to make it nice. Give it that little bit of a difference without being a little bit over the top. So enjoy your pens.